Hello, 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 and welcome to Updog Sports Talk. My name is Matt Miller, and joining me today, as always, Justin McGovern. What is up,
What's up,
Justin? Long time
everybody?
no see.
I know, yeah, it's been a while. Glad to get to have another show today. It's been a great football season so far, but definitely there's been a few surprises, a few disappointments, and I'm ready to dive in and talk about them.
Yeah, today we're talking about NFL and college. So if you're a college fan, stick around. NFL fan, jumping right in.
All right, here we go. So obviously you can see here this quick look at the standings here, and I think we can get ourselves started here at the NFC East. So definitely Eagles and Giants are 2-0. Now, how about the Giants so far being 2-0? I mean,
Not surprising, actually. It's a little surprising based off of their last few years. But I think I sent you. I found a tweet earlier. Go ahead and say what you're going to say, and I'll find this.
yeah, well, I mean, they pulled off some close wins so far. They made a comeback against the Titans and then ended up beating the Panthers by 3. But I definitely can say like a rejuvenated Saquon Barkley's helped them out. And the other
Oh
thing
yeah,
that's helped them out is you never found it yet.
I found
Um,
it.
oh,
Andrew Thomas is the highest graded offensive lineman in the NFL through 2 weeks. From Pro Football Focus. Last year he had a 78.9 rating. This year 89.1. So huge upgrade.
yeah,
He's definitely learned a little bit in the offseason. Plus, it seems like the offensive line meshing well, giving Barkley some big holes to run through. Defense playing lights out. So could we have a random Giants win this year? Win in the division? I don't know. We didn't really have that on our preseason script, um,
yeah,
but I mean, hey, it's the NFL. Anything can happen. They definitely improved in the draft. Excited to see where they go. I
yeah.
root for Daniel Jones. I hated all the hate that he got, but at some point you got to see if he's the guy, and this is his year. So far,
Well,
team's
certainly
not
I
doing
could
too bad.
say that offensive line that is a huge development because if you watch our show, pretty much everything we've talked about the Giants is how terrible their offensive line is. We have roasted their offensive line so much in the show, and now here we are today actually talking about them playing well. That is huge news for them. Now obviously we got to give a verdict though. Do we think this team's for real or will they fade? Matt, what do you think?
I think they're going to fade a little bit. I think they're just going to run out of momentum and then be like how those Eli Manning teams were: strong start, random chunk at the end of the season where they just fall off and then randomly make the playoffs. Maybe they make the playoffs because the NFC is kind of thin, but we'll see how that goes. I think they're going to be legit enough to make a little bit of noise, but I don't think they're going to be legit enough to compete in the division.
Yeah, honestly, I think they're going to fade. Daniel Jones is still not the answer, and honestly, the receiving core is still kind of a mess. Kenny Galladay thinks he should play more, but it's been a complete bum so far. So really, clearly, he shouldn't. Even though he's like the highest cap hit receiver in the NFL this year, that situation's a mess. And then Kadarius Toney was like their first round pick last year. They got a whole situation with him. Not exactly sure what's going on there. So they kind of still lack a passing game. And even though Saquon looks on point right now, there is still a question mark of how long he's going to stay healthy. Will he make it the whole year healthy? That is a question that I don't feel good about. I feel like, history is just against him. I hope to see him healthy all year because he's an electric player when he is. But,
Well, staying
and
in the
then,
division though, Eagles. To me, in preseason, you and I actually talked about them
yeah, I
uh
was going to say,
being
like,
legit.
if you watch our show, we mentioned in the preseason that the Eagles were looking pretty good, and here they are, 2-0 so far, looking absolutely dominant.
Does Updog know something about football or what? No, I'm playing.
Hey,
But
look at
no,
us.
like Jalen Hurts is playing better than I thought he would. I thought that this was going to be more of a defensive. I mean, the defense has been playing amazing,
Yeah,
but the offense has been playing well too. So like that to me was a little surprising. But I mean, AJ Brown coming in, having Devontae Smith. Sanders needs to step up a little bit more, and Gainwell needs to do a little bit more. They need a better running game with those two.
Honestly, they seem to have figured it out a little bit with those guys. Like Sanders so far has done what he's been asked to do. He's pretty much averaged like 15 carries, 85 yards. That's pretty good average, I would say. He actually scored a touchdown for once, which was an absolute pleasure for my fantasy team because I had them starting. I was not expecting a touchdown from him. I was just hoping to get 10 points and get out of there. I think the backs so far are doing a good job in the role they have. Offensive line's doing well. The biggest question mark we had going into the year was Jalen Hurts, and he has played well. And this defense, Darius Slay just was on fire the other night.
He was slaying.
Got 2 interceptions. Probably could have had 6, and he caught the other 4. He was locking the Vikings down. That defense is flying around right now. I don't think we have to really give a verdict here, Matt. I think we both have thought that they're for real. We predict this in the preseason, and definitely there's nothing we've seen to tell us we're wrong.
Quickly touching on the other 2 teams in the division, Commanders seem to improve a little bit more offensively, but their defense just not playing well. So they're probably going to fall back behind. Carson Wentz may fall back into his Carson Wentz ways. Cowboys losing Dak hurt a lot, but Cooper Rush, a lot of people didn't think he would do well, but he has 2 career starts, led a game-winning drive in the 4th quarter against the Vikings last year in week 8, and then led a game-winning 4th quarter drive against the Bengals last week. So could Cooper Rush be a solid starter this year? I think it's going to really rely on if Micah Parsons is going for MVP or not.
Yeah. And still, even though, they're 1-1, the way they've started is not how the Cowboys have envisioned here. I would say there's a little bit of panic here. Matt, on the scale of 1 to 10, and we're going to do this for all the disappointments this year. So our scale of 1 to 10 on the panic meter, 1 is everything is fine. This team's still going to be great, win the Super Bowl. 10 on the meter is fire everybody, get rid of the players, get rid of the coaches, get rid of the front office. This whole thing's a mess. Using that scale, Matt, what would you rate the Cowboys?
I would say a 4 only because you're getting Dak back next year. I would raise it more in the running game. Pollard doesn't have a contract for next year yet. Zeke, his yards per carry or yards per game keeps going down. They got to figure something out. They need another receiver with CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup when he comes back. But I would say a 4 because they did well last year. They just came a little short in the playoffs on kind of a stupid play. But and this year losing their best player on offense, that's a big blow. I think they spent a little bit too much money keeping Zeke. But defensively, they're playing great football right now.
Yeah.
Well, at least last week. But Micah Parsons, just line him up on defensive end, have him rush a quarterback, take him out in running it downs, let someone else get in there. Dude's a beast.
Yeah. I'm going to give it 6 because they came in the season with playoff expectations. Without Dak playing, I think they're not going to make the playoffs. And even if he did play,
I don't think so either. But to me, it's not that high of because 6 is getting closer to firing Mike McCarthy. I don't think I would fire Mike McCarthy if my starting franchise quarterback goes down for the season.
Hey, at that point, it's like wild moves.
Yeah, he does, but it's like I personally wouldn't fire that coach. I would give him one more shot. If my quarterback got hurt again, then I'm like, okay, let's figure something else out. But for now, I'm not freaking out about the future of the franchise. I'm just freaking out about the season.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like that's why it's at least on my scale. Like I usually 6 or higher on my scale, at least during the rest of the show.
We do have a lot of teams to go over, though.
Yeah. It'll be, I think they're missing the playoffs, basically.
Yeah.
And that means their season's over. Yeah. So moving on here, I'll pull up. We got the NFC North here. Let's talk real quick just about the Detroit Lions. Motor City Dan Campbell has got this crew going.
You and I watch Hard Knocks. You didn't
yeah.
watch last episode, but I did.
You
And
bastard! You watched it without me? Come
you
on
weren't
now.
around. Plus, get your own HBO Max. And then the Lions, they seem to be majorly improved. Jared Goff seems like the old Jared Goff, more so than last year's. I think there's more of a commitment to a lot of these players on this team. They got some people in there. My question is the secondary. They got Justin Jefferson this week. How are they going to handle that?
How do they plan to cover him?
Because like
Kirk
Cousins, like he had a bad Monday night game, and he
That's
was
just
Monday night
Kirk Cousins.
But I think this offense is going to start clicking here soon. The only question, and we said this in the preseason, is the offensive line. Like, and the depth at receiver. So if either of their receivers get hurt, they're kind of done. But honestly, if they can keep Cousins, Cook, Madison, Thielen, and Jefferson healthy, the offensive line just has to be consistent. Defensively, they're not playing terrible, but they also did just give a bunch of points to the Eagles. So, yeah, take it how you want it. But I wouldn't panic. Well, I guess that one of our panic teams.
No. Actually,
Okay.
you transitioned this sentence from the Lions to the Vikings real quick, just because of their matchup this week. That game will determine.
We just got a lot to cover. Trying to move on.
Who's a contender here? But yeah, I mean the Vikings look fine. The Lions, on the other hand, definitely look promising. They definitely have a shot at the wild card this year. It feels like with that offense and how they're playing.
Yeah, and
Defense,
like we've been saying,
NFC
is not deep.
No, it's not. Moving on to the South. I mean, there's really nothing that strikes you as surprising here. Buccaneers are 2-0. We expected that. Panthers and Falcons stink. We expected that. And then Saints.
I expected a little bit more from the Panthers. I had higher hopes than what they're showing.
Yeah.
Matt Rule's gone. I think they maybe bring Baker back and then let Sam Darnold walk. But it's Tom Brady's division. He may be going through a tough time in his marriage, but and his former coach, now consultant, is telling wide receivers to go back on the field and fight people. So yeah, I have no concerns about the Bucs. I'm just concerned more about their health. Like they were down 4 receivers for this game.
Yeah, they were ridiculous. They came into the season ridiculously loaded receiver and already have lost. Like they're down to their top 4 going into the next game, which is crazy. But I mean, they'll be fine. You know, Tom will navigate it. You know, I mean, they actually beat the Saints in New Orleans for the first time since Tom's been there in the regular season. So that's already a huge step in the direction of dominating this division. On to the West here, you can see a bunch of 1-1 teams. Not a whole lot of surprises. You know, Trey Lance getting hurt kind of stinks, but the 49ers,
I think they'll be okay with Jimmy
G's
G.
Hands.
Jimmy G got them to the NFC Championship game last year.
Yeah.
And so I'm pretty sure a couple years ago. So yeah, I think they'll be fine. I think the Rams are going to be okay. It's just going to take a little bit of time to get Matthew Stafford fully healthy. Seahawks have played better than I thought. I don't really have a whole lot of hope for them. But huge win by the Cardinals against the Raiders. That to me shows that they have what it takes to get back to the playoffs.
Yeah, even though their defense is still kind of bad, definitely that win saved them from getting a panic meter rating this week. But yeah, good for the Cardinals getting that win. Definitely was an electric game down the stretch. Now, getting over to the AFC here, another surprise team for us, the Miami Dolphins. Now, let's talk about this team because I don't think anyone saw them being a 2-0. And they've, you know, we hinted during the offseason that we thought they were going to be better. But I don't think we thought it was going to be this big of a jump. Tua finally has a supporting cast around him, and he looks like an electric playmaker now. Like Tua looks like everything that was promised. Now
they made moves on the offensive line.
Yeah.
And they got brought in Tyreek Hill. They brought in some speed at running back with Edmonds. They have probably one of the smartest coaches in the NFL right now, Mike
Daniel's
McDaniel.
just a wizard.
Dude, he's so good. Like, and he's like media friendly, so everyone's gonna like just start following the Dolphins. But I saw more of this next year than I did this year, so they're ahead of my timeline. Defensively, they need to just step it up a little bit. Like Lamar Jackson was able to throw a 75-yard touchdown, and
And run for one too.
yeah, and Bateman just went right through their defense. No one tried to tackle, and then no one tried to tackle Jackson running, which that's actually really hard to do. But yeah, I like where the Dolphins are going. I still think this is the Bills' division to lose. Speaking of the Bills, I think they have won their last what? I saw a graphic earlier. It was like their last 5 games of double digits or something like that.
Oh, their past 5 victories have been by double digits.
Yeah.
Yes. So obviously that does not count the tragic Chiefs game, but definitely look for a shootout this weekend when the Dolphins play the Bills, because the Dolphins are the first real big like deep threat test for the Bills secondary with Hill,
With White's out.
at Waddle. Yeah, White's still out. And yeah, like the Bills were not able to stop Hill at all with White out in the playoffs last year. So now
The difference is going to be left tackle.
but
the difference is going to be left tackle for the Dolphins.
Yeah.
Was that Armstead?
Yeah, Armstead.
So if Armstead can control Von Miller, I think the Dolphins have a shot.
Yeah. But yeah, I would anticipate a shootout here just because both teams are passing teams. And really, honestly, even though Edmonds was a good addition, the Dolphins have not run the ball well. They do everything passing. The Bills do everything passing. Neither one can run worth a shit. Both pass very well. Watch for a lot of points in that one.
Yeah. Let's move on.
Yeah, moving on here. So obviously we got in the AFC North here. Definitely the biggest surprise to both of us is how poorly the Bengals have started. I mean, this has been nothing short of a disappointment so far. Losing to the Steelers, even though the Steelers can be tough to play in the openers, but losing to the Cowboys last week with a backup quarterback is honestly a downright debacle. Matt, you're the Bengals fan, so I'm gonna let you take this one away. What's going on?
I'm gonna say, I don't think Burrow's fully healthy from his appendix surgery. And then his time away with the appendix surgery, I don't think he's had time to click with his offensive line. And I think Collins was out for a little bit of camp. I think Karras was out for a little bit, even though Karras was the highest rated center so far this season. So he's like the only bright spot on that offensive line. I have noticed that Jonah Williams has not been playing to peak Jonah Williams. So
yeah,
I think it's just going to take a little time to mesh. I'm not worried because I know what this offense is capable of. The defense just needs to do a better job in the first half. So they limited turnovers last game. Now they just need to shore up the offensive line. They're more moving horizontally than vertically, like they were last year. They were doing more vertical. Mm-hmm. This year they're moving more horizontal. Hurst is better on seam routes. Chase is better on seam routes. Higgins is the better one underneath. So if you have him running underneath, Higgins could put up 200 yards on like 20 receptions, or you just have a bunch of people running deep.
Yeah, but wouldn't it be a case where they've done less vertical because they just don't trust the offensive line to block long enough to let it develop?
That's why they're running more horizontal, because Burrow can't. He doesn't have a whole lot of time to throw the ball. So if it's just going to take a little bit of time, a little bit of Zach Taylor just yelling at people. But if you want to throw the panic meter on it, I'm going to go 3. Only because they were expected to win both games. Not too worried going forward the rest of the season. I do think that they're going to struggle over the next couple of weeks, but by week 7, week 8, we'll see. We'll know what we have at that point, and that's when I will establish a higher number or a lower number. But it's early in the season. A lot of guys shaking the rust off. A lot of moving parts on the offense that prevented them from working together in training camp. So this has been preseason for that unit, whereas the defense got to play together a little bit.
That's what it feels like a little bit. They've been a little bit out of sync. It's kind of weird too, because it just kind of feels like they're a little bit behind game planning too, because it seems like teams have been catching them by surprise early in games. They fall behind and then they kind of catch on as the game goes on, figure it out. But definitely they need to shore it up a little bit. I'm going to agree with you for now. I mean, everything's still on the line here. They could still do it all. They're only one game behind the division. They'll leave it at 3 for now, but with a caveat that they're playing the Jets this week. If they lose to the freaking Jets, that panic rating's going through the roof, because
so I
you
will
cannot lose to the
mention
Jets.
I will mention about the Jets. This entire time I've been saying that Joe Flacco is a good quarterback. Everyone was saying he was elite. I don't think he's elite, but he because he plays games where he throws like 100 yards, one touchdown and like 3 picks. But then he'll have games like last week where he had almost 400 yards passing and a bunch of touchdowns. So he's still got it. I'm not too worried because the Bengals have actually played him very, very well. Sam Hubbard got his big flex going against Joe Flacco. So Jets, good football team, but not too worried going forward.
Plus, I'm sure the Bengals secondary will do better than whatever the hell the Browns keep doing in the secondary. Seriously, what is up with that secondary? Like, they have a bunch of talent back there, and they just don't cover well. I don't get what's up with that. How in the world do you leave Garrett Wilson wide open like that right at the end of the game?
He's legit right now their best receiver.
Actually, they have the players holding meetings, so you usually don't have that week too. We're not doing a panic reading on the Browns, but not looking good there. But on to the AFC South here, and this division, you just look at it, what a hot mess this is. The Jacksonville Jaguars are the only team with a win. That wins over the Colts. This division just looks terrible. I mean, there's only one win in the whole division, and there's been 2 division games. That's how bad it is. So let's talk about the Colts here. They are terrible at season openers for whatever reason. I don't know why they're so bad season openers. They actually tied instead of lost this year, so I guess it's progress. And they're terrible in Jacksonville. They had both of those the first 2 weeks. Probably something we should have mentioned on our show in the preseason, but
I think we did. Not the Jacksonville one. I think we did the week 1 one.
The other thing has been just the injuries. Like, they have so few receiving weapons as it is. And then Michael Pittman misses the Jaguars game. Like, he's really the only option they have. So when he's out there, like, they have nobody else to throw to.
So as of Wednesday, before week 3, Pittman and Pierce have practiced. So that should bode well for the Colts. I'm not too worried about the Colts going forward, just like the Bengals. But the Colts have been beat up. Shaq Leonard was out for the first game. And then
in the second one.
But I think he's been practicing. So we'll get more on that later in the week after we record the show. But yeah, I'm not too worried about the Colts. I'm more impressed with how the Texans were able to tie, and that the Jaguars just keep their streak alive.
Oh my. But yeah, I think for me, I have the Colts as more of a 5. I'm a little bit worried because they lack receiving options. The offense looks like a mess right now. Get some of those guys back, maybe they'll look better, but playing the Chiefs this week isn't going to help matters. But the Larry Lace are still in division contention because this division stinks. On to the Tennessee Titans, another surprise team that hasn't looked good. Losing the opener to the Giants. Honestly, they should have won that game. They blew a 20-7 lead. And then playing the Bills, who they've had the Bills number the past couple of years, but not this week, not this past Monday. The Bills blew them out 41-7.
But I mean, do you blame them though? Because like I know that my ass has been handed to me by the Bills, so I have to pay bills every month, so I don't like. I'm just kidding.
My!
I had a different wording for that before the show, and it just went horribly awry. We're not going to try that again. But Titans, I'm gonna put an 8 on the panic meter. Ryan Tannehill doesn't look that great. Derrick Henry has 25 yards for like 100 or 25 carries for 102 yards this season. He needs to do better. Everyone expected him to do better. He is coming back from an injury, so later in the season things could change.
Well, I will mention here a big impact of what's hurting him, and honestly, what I saw on Monday was that like he just had no room to run.
Luan got hurt pretty early in that game, so I haven't heard anything on him if he's going to be.
He's expected to be out for the year. They think that was a report that came today. So
big blow.
Yeah, that's
Vrabel might
bad
be
news.
Inching. Like Vrabel's a good coach, but he might be inching towards a hot seat just because of postseason woes last season and how they performed this year.
I don't think Vrabel has to worry at all. I think they know they have a good coach, but it's just the move they made to trade AJ Brown this offseason really set them back. Like
Burks played halfway decent in the first half.
Yeah.
They just couldn't get the ball to him.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, you still have to wait for Burks to develop. I honestly it felt like the plays that he got the ball were like plays that were specifically crafted to get him the ball. Kind of had him do some different things to get it. Other than that, he doesn't seem like he's ready to get open on his own. Robert Woods is coming off a torn ACL, so he's kind of getting slowly back to being more explosive, and they have nothing else outside of those two. So,
at this point, put Willison. What's it gonna hurt?
Yeah, he can run around back there. Although fumbling against the Bills backups did not prove to be a good look for him.
No, but they was also dealing with a shitty offensive line. So
yeah. But anyways, I'm gonna go just because the division stinks. I'm gonna give it a 6 on the panic meter. I think there's a chance they might miss the playoffs. It honestly looks like they'll miss the playoffs, but this division sucks. They can still recover and win the division.
The offense coordinator is definitely going to get fired at some point this season.
Yeah. And honestly, they just need to work this. This season could be a loss
to the West.
To work for the future. But on to the West here. Obviously, this was hyped up to be the most difficult division of all time. And there's some cracks showing so far. The Denver Broncos lost to the Seahawks in the opener and honestly looked terrible this past week. They just look out of sort offensively. Like, I know it's only been 2 games of his coach career, but Hackett just looks completely out of place as a head coach. He just looks in over his head. At one point, the fans had to chant down the play clock so that they wouldn't get a delay a game again.
But the one thing I will back is the fact that McManus has one of the biggest legs in the NFL, and they were playing in Denver. So, like,
they're actually playing a game in Seattle. Just so you know.
Either way, it's still like it wasn't raining.
A little bit of elevation.
But like they had, you could go either way on that. You can go with your $200 million quarterback, or you can go with your big leg and get the points. I think he chose to be conservative and try to get the points, and it just didn't work out. And then he looks like an idiot. And I'm more worried about like their struggles overall. I don't think I think it runs deeper than Hackett. I don't think Wilson is as good as everyone thought he was going to be this season. I think at this point, going into a new system, on a different team in a different city, and then going to play his old team and getting beat by them, that's embarrassing. And then getting a really big contract like right after. But I would put the panic meter higher on the Broncos. They did come out with a win, but they probably should have lost that last game.
I mean, it was against the Texans, so that's why they won that game, is because they were playing a terrible team. Things don't look good. I don't know if it's Russ or it's just like the fact that he's not comfortable because the offense just is a jumbled mess right now. They're struggling to get plays in on time, even
10 minutes.
Like, it's just a giant mess. So I'm gonna put the panic meter here at 8. This is a competitive division, and I think the Broncos are gonna miss the playoffs. On to the Raiders. So the Raiders started 0-2. A bit surprising. I know the Chargers lost is a competitive one, but choking away that game against the Cardinals was not a good look. Let's just go
No.
quick here. What do you think is the panic rating for them?
I'm gonna go probably a 5. I think they're gonna figure it out. I think Carr and Adams are gonna get it going. I think Jacobs is gonna get it going. I just don't think McDaniels is that great of a head coach.
Yeah. And blowing a lead is definitely not a good indication for that. I'm going to go a little bit higher to a 6. I think sometimes they just let the coverages dictate things too much. At some point you just got to force the ball to Adams to make it work. They haven't done that so far. Maybe they'll figure that out, but in a competitive division, you cannot afford to start 0-2.
All right. So that is our NFL roundup. Tell us what your thoughts are on panic ratings. A lot of you are probably gonna just bash the Bengals all the time. That's fine. We'll read it. For your college football fans, we got a little bit of a show today. We are gonna have to go a little quicker because we anticipate a little bit more time on this segment. But Justin, college football time. Let's go.
All right, let's go here. College football. You can see here we have a graphic of surprise undefeated teams. Definitely, Fox, they do a good job of these graphics. They usually use the same format, but don't let your eyes deceive you here. This is not a basketball graphic. This is a football graphic. Yes, Kansas, Duke, Syracuse, Indiana, all those teams are undefeated. Starting with Kansas here. This team seems to be electric this year. Out of nowhere, Kansas has won at West Virginia. They won at home against Houston. Like this team looks pretty good.
Yeah, I watched that Houston game and it was exciting. And then all of a sudden, Kansas just pulled away. And some of it was wide receivers on Houston's sideline fighting. Some of it was they lost their starting receiver. But Kansas looks semi legit. I think they're still going to lose a couple games throughout the year to kind of pull them back down to earth a little bit. But definitely a lot better, or like a big improvement over what we've seen. They got Duke this weekend. That's going to be one hell of a matchup. I think
the
game day should be there.
Week. Yeah, game day should be there. The game of the week, 3-0 Kansas versus 3-0 Duke. It's going to be an awesome game.
It's at Kansas, so I got Kansas, even though I'm wearing a Duke hat, but I didn't have a Kansas hat, so I went with my Duke hat. But I got Kansas in that game. Like Duke looks pretty good, but like Kansas really impressed me.
Yeah. I mean, part of what impressed me about Duke was the fact that they beat Northwestern, but it appears that's no longer impressive. So yeah. I definitely feel more impressed with Kansas, but I'm excited to watch that game. And just mentioning that, how about the quadrant here, North Carolina teams, the 4 big North Carolina schools, Wake Forest, North Carolina, NC State, all undefeated. Wake Forest had to survive a tough one against Liberty this past week. And now they play Clemson. So we'll see how that goes.
Did want to mention between Kansas and Oklahoma State. They're the only 2 FBS schools that haven't had a men's college basketball or college football loss in over 200 days.
Well done. Well done, guys.
Yeah, shout out to you guys.
But yeah, those teams looking good. North Carolina, they have an electric offense, not much of a defense. It'll be interesting to see what they do against Notre Dame this week. And then I would say, just looking at this board here, NC State also being undefeated, good for them. Yeah. But yeah, I think Kansas is for real. I think they could make a bowl game. Duke, it'll be a little bit tougher for them.
I think Arkansas has impressed me too.
Yeah, but they almost let old Bobby Petrino roll in there of Missouri State to come out and win. That would have been the worst loss in program history.
Yeah, that would have been bad. But I mean, sometimes you have a bad game, and if you pull out a win, you pull out a win.
Yeah, big test against Texas A&M this week, though.
Also, heard a rumor about Bobby Petrino going to Arizona State. That seems pretty good. A lot of people are rooting for Deion Sanders, but I think Deion's going to stay where he's at. Back to the graphic, though. Indiana, are they legit?
It's a tough one because Indiana's pretty fortunate to be 3-0. They honestly pulled the game against Illinois out of their ass. They put up very little offense, and then I think like 75 yards of like their 100 yards of offense came on the game-winning drive in that one. I think some people said there was a ref controversy in that one too.
A little bit.
But and then they were lucky to pull out the win against Western Kentucky. But sometimes there's a team like that. Maybe they just keep pulling out close wins.
I like them, but Syracuse, are they good?
Are they good? Syracuse blew out Louisville in the opener. Just won a thriller over Purdue. They play Virginia this week, so we'll get a better indication. I do think Syracuse is legit.
I don't.
I think Syracuse is good.
Louisville the past few years has been terrible. Purdue,
Yeah.
middle of the road. So I think they're improved, but I don't think they're that great.
Yeah. And then shout out to Tulane. Massive win for them this week, upsetting Kansas State. Now they can't afford to go the way of other group of 5 teams. Obviously, the Sun Belt made a huge impact week 2, pulling off a bunch of upsets, and then all of them struggled the next week. So for Tulane, it's got to get back up, get to the next win here. They can't let Southern Miss catch them by surprise. And
Is Kentucky
Tulane
legit?
could have a really good year. Dude, Kentucky is legit. So they took on Florida in the swamp, and after a rough first half, Kentucky took that game over in the second half. They have temporarily broken Anthony Richardson. It was impressive how that defense was flying around down there. Kentucky looks like they could beat everyone on their schedule with exception of Georgia, who no one's going to beat.
Down to our last few minutes here. Anything else, Justin?
Let's talk about the Pac-12. Oregon State looks like a really good team. They beat Boise State and Fresno State to open out the year. They look like they have a good offense. Their defense has improved, and yet they're buried in the Pac-12 network. Get it together, guys. I mean, Oregon State USC this weekend could be the biggest game in the Pac-12 this year. No one can watch it. That is a mess. Oregon State has a big game against, I believe, Utah next week too, and that one's on TV. It's like, come on now, guys. You got to put these teams on TV if they're looking good. Washington and Washington State pulled off big wins over Big Ten teams. So definitely big deal there for the Pac-12. Bigger impact to non-conference than we've seen them do in a while. And quick shout out to James Madison, who is in their first year at FBS. They're currently undefeated, but big test with Appalachian State this week.
All right, cutting you off. Gotta sign off here.
All right.
Follow us on every social media. Go to the search and hit @Updog Sports Talk. If you're on some weird one, we're not on it. We're on the main ones. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so already. Give us notifications so you know when we post. Give us some love on social media. If you see us out and about, tell us hi. Give us your thoughts on things, and we will see you next time. See you guys.
Have a good one, everybody.